veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed. All the squad here to play, and I've got something to say, yeah. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no, I push play. I won't stop till I make a change. I withdraw on the things I make. I turn flaws into flawless traits. I build tall, never capping space. I won't stop till I hear him say.
All right, Dr. Imfan Akpan, I am here. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, and I'm excited to do this live stream with Nick Prentiss, founder, CEO of Breadlace. And this is, I gotta say this. So you've been one of the most popular guests that I have, and you're popular with my students. So it goes hand in hand because, I mean, really, you graduated not too long ago. So it's great when you come and visit because you connect with them in that way. And it resonates because they can see your success, and you're not too far away from where they are, right? And you ask the questions, you talk a lot about, perseverance, mindset. So you give a lot of inspiration. And what we were talking about before this, and I'm gonna let you do your intro, but I thought was really good was you were talking about, it's been about 2 years since we had our last live stream. And so a lot has changed. So a lot has changed, a lot has developed. So I'm just going to give it to you. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Imfan. It's been 2.5 years. Last time I was on, it was November 2022. I've had bread for 2 months at that point. Right on the dot, if anything. And of course, we have our 3-year coming up here in about 2 months. So that's exciting. I'm very, very lucky. But most definitely, yes. I remember back during that time, the thoughts that were going through my head, once again, the mindset that you have touched on is once again everything, and it's effervescent in the sense that the whole goal of this is really to create principles and really having these principles that can be applied through your entire life, not just business. In the sense that, as I'm going on this journey, I'm of course having to uncover those and piece them together, and of course split test them, and see which ones work, which ones are true, and which ones are not, of course. I guess since that time, we've a few accolades. We've sold right about 500,000 pairs of these bread shoelaces, and we're sitting right about 500 million views across socials, which is nice to know because there's a change in market that's coming, that's happening, that of course everybody knows about. And things, of course, are going digital. We're seeing this increase in e-commerce and decrease in, I don't want to say decrease. The brick and mortar is still growing. It's just growing slower than normally. And the class, of course, is online is picking up, and that is interesting for many reasons. One, of course, to be able to purchase something, of course, without touching this product, simply being told about it, that takes a certain amount of trust. And I believe, especially recently, we've seen kind of a pooling in trust start to occur with certain companies, such as the world's largest online retailer. If you're going to order from this company, it's gonna come in a swift amount of time, and not even just to touch on it coming in a swift amount of time. That's such a large factor nowadays, because even with let's say a classic online store, when you're fulfilling an item, you're normally going to pick whether it's FedEx, USPS, UPS, DHL, regardless. There's a good chance it's going to take over 2 days to get to your customer. We're located pretty centrally in America, and just simply having that competitive advantage for, of course, the world's largest online retailer is quite an amazing feat. And not only that, I surely do believe that that's where the market is kind of pooling and heading as a whole. And that's that makes you of course have to ask a few questions. Do you of course sink into it and accept it, that and really what this has came down to is the lowering of barriers of entry into being able to start a company. It's kind of seems that nowadays everybody is an entrepreneur. And with this large influx of entrepreneurs, of course, there's going to be a bigger company there to kind of take them in. And that's essentially what we're seeing, a large increase in international sellers on this platform. And it's, the competition it's becoming pretty even field around the globe, which is quite interesting. But
now you said, okay, competition. Can you talk about how you got started, and a little bit, so for everybody who hasn't seen the last interview, just to kind of level set how you got started, what you're selling, and then where you're looking to go.
Most definitely. I'm Nick Prentiss. I'm selling Breadlaces. We sell bread elastic shoelaces that stretch, allowing you to slide on your shoes. I started this company in my dorm room. I'm here at the University of Arkansas, and this was 3 years ago. Ever since, we have scaled it to as I said previously, we've sold about 500,000 pairs now, mainly through our marketing channels via, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, all socials, and we've seen success through those. Most definitely.
Okay. Well, which one was your first platform that you got on, and why? Why? And then can you talk a little bit about that marketing? That's one of the big things. Just a side note, last time you visited one of my classes, one of my students was like, yeah, I just saw his video, the car, he's like, I just saw the video on TikTok, so which platform did you go to and why, and kind of how did you maneuver to the other platforms?
Yeah, most definitely. So, choosing the platform TikTok was easy for us. Easy for me, I guess you could say. I've had previous accounts with it, and it was quite essentially just applying those skills that I'd learned from previous accounts, ones that I've scaled, and applying it to a business context. Learning, applying your hook. Having your body, having your clothes, and once again, going back to this principle, it's many of them should be interchangeable. That's how you know a principle is going to work. It's very much interchangeable in the sense that it can be applied to many different divisions, I guess. At least that's what I'm learning. So, obviously, when it came to, I guess, expanding to other platforms, it was, as simple as, quite the literal starting an account, of course, but keeping, yes, every platform has their own personality per se. But at the end of the day, they're not too different. Of course, when we started, it would be simply posting. If we were to post a video on TikTok, we'll also post on Instagram, we'll also post it on YouTube, and build up a base of audience there. And of course, what you see is different videos have performed differently on different platforms. So it's you simply learn from there, and of course adjust and split test. And I think one of the greatest things that socials have introduced, and of course this is just recent, was it was actually something that Instagram did, which was their trial reels. Essentially being able to post a reel without it going to your immediate followers. And of course this allows you to split test and really just see how the public will take a video, and whether or not you should bring it to your audience or not. Of course, ultimately comes down to your decision, but once again, you want to take care of it. Yeah, it's been as simple as that. Some socials, I don't want to say we stray away from. It's just not our strong suit. Ones such as Snapchat and maybe even Pinterest. Maybe that just needs to take some expansion on our side. But regardless, we stick with our name.
Why Snapchat? Why not Snapchat? Just curious.
And we've had one, and a lot of these platforms are learning to become hybrids, and I don't really want to say learning. It's more of TikTok did it first, and others followed suit. And I say TikTok did it first in the sense that it went all in on it. I mean, went straight for the TikTok shop, and of course, that helped out people, startups. And once again, as I talk about these large influx of quote unquote entrepreneurs that essentially gave them a platform to, of course, promote, and that includes us. Snapchat, has it to an extent, but I like to see a little bit more. Of course, YouTube has it, and Instagram has it. And really, what this all boils down to, like I say every reason in the book, it's just a comfortability thing. That's really what it is. What you had before, you were running a business account, which one you're most comfortable with. You're more in tune with the platform, such as Facebook. I didn't know anything about Facebook, but I knew it was a large platform, and it is, especially when Meta was created. With that being said, many of I had to learn it, quite essentially. I had to learn it. So, one is of course audience size, and two is comfortability. But regardless, at some point, it's always best to be on many platforms as possible, I will say.
Well, that's good. So you started with TikTok, but what's your origin story? We want that like the Bruce Wayne, becoming Batman. How did this start? Can you give us some of the the mindset, what went into it? How did it come about?
Surely. I was born in Keller, Texas. This is a very privileged area in Texas, I will say. It's an outskirts of Dallas. My parents and the rest of my family are from Chicago. And I'm the lone soldier, lone Texan. I'm the big Texan, because I'm taller than the rest of them. But regardless, right around, I was born in 2001, right in 07, my parents split. I was at that period of time living with my mother, along with my older brother and my older sister. and we had to make it work. Not that we were struggling. I cannot say, at least from a financial standpoint, but of course, just being simply not just in the industry, but my parents are doctors, so you find yourself in, I guess, naturally thinking in a way that is logical, I guess you could say, even though we all are very emotional, logical in the sense that you look back at your life, and this is, of course, something that I've been doing recently, and of course, we'll get there, and you have to ask yourself, why did you become the way you are? And one of those major factors, I do believe, um, came from my parents splitting. But regardless, I grew up in Keller, Texas, very low minority population. Not that had too large of effect on me growing up, but of course, didn't have zero. Uh, Got into track and field right around 2013, so I'm 12 years old, and early on, I was able to find success in track. I was in my very first year, I was a long jumper, and I was able to go to the USATF Junior Olympic National Competition. And that was one of the very earliest memories that I've had of truly feeling proud of something that I've accomplished. Not only that, but um, in a short amount of time, which was new to me. Regardless, I went on to do track and field for the next right about 10 years, able to, of course, scale this to the collegiate level. Use the word scale, that's pretty funny. To the collegiate level. And, that's ultimately where I had found my ending point with it, which is interesting. But, when it comes to business, this wasn't something that I believe formed over time. And, of course, everything does form over time. And I'm being a little facetious, but I went back home. It was quite interesting. I went back home about a year ago, a year and some change, and I went into my closet. My mother keeps a plastic container full of all of the artwork and anything I've written growing up. And in that was a book, and it was a coloring book. One of the pages that said, and this was typed out text, if I had $100, what would I do with it? It was, if I had, it was $100 bill and what you'd color in, I would spend it on dot dot dot. I said, and of course this year was 2005. I was 4 years old. It was 2006. I lied. I was five, and of course I had colored it in very sloppily. Under I had written, I would save it so I could have more, and that is quite interesting to think of the delayed gratification principle, I guess, built at the age of five, and where that came from. I guess it was my parents. But regardless, this was a mindset that I carried um, my whole life, and with that, it has paid off, and but also with that, of course, you find yourself somewhat of an outsider, and even with that, you of course have to think of your psychological, social, psychosocial development, and uh, be conscious of that in the moment in which, I guess, to an extent, I was growing up. I had friends, basically, is what I'm getting at. I had my neighborhood boys, and later on, the kids at school. Always had the teammates, of course, and siblings. And that's very important to have those people in which you can rely on and be close to. But regardless, as time went on from 2005 to right about 2009, this was when the silly band craze came about. Silly bands are rubber bands. It's kind of funny thinking of this now with making a stretchy shoelace. silly bands were rubber bands that obviously stretched, and regardless, they would form the shape of something. I literally mean anything. It could be form the shape of a key, or form the shape of a microphone, form the shape of a hat. This was all the craze at the age of 8. Regardless, I wanted silly bands. I would like to fit in. Everybody else had them. Asked my mother, may I have some silly bands? She probably thought I was silly for asking. So, regardless, I took I like to say, loan out from a classmate, which she gave me 2 silly bands, and I essentially traded my way until I had a lot more than 2. And I think that was the start of it, really learning that public relation, bartering, merchant, trading, appeals is what had gotten me going with this. So it was really from that age in which I knew that a business was imminent. And of course, the irony of it, I was doing track and field this whole time. If you were to ever ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? It would be start a business. You want to go to the Olympics? No. You're going to college for it? No. And, that was, of course, hard to let go when it eventually did have to come to an end. But, regardless, after this period of time, and I like to always draw this analogy, the school system is like a train track. All right. And then once you get to the end of that train, whether that's high school, college, you're going to be derailed and you will then be in free range mode, or, maybe even a better analogy now, you're riding on the train. And then once you find your stop, you have to get off and, of course, walk to wherever you want to go from there.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, you could get back on just like you could go back to school, but it'll cost a ticket, it'll cost tuition. Regardless, see, I don't remember where I was at. Regardless, yeah. So
you around 2009, silly bands.
The thing is, I've said that analogy so many times, and now that I've changed it, it makes so much more sense. So, we derailed the train track, and I even like to say, college is interesting. It's not, you're on the track, but it's a little more loose. So, my train track was really, if one track was school, the other track was track. And you were following this track. And of course, one of the metal track sides was removed, in which it opened up some freedom and some time for thought. And of course, time for ego backlash to put me in a fraternity, but joined a fraternity during this period of time, and that was I guess fun. I was looking for, once again, a brotherhood, but of course,
what fraternity did you join?
Kappa Sigma.
Okay.
Here at the University of the Xi chapter, and a beautiful time, beautiful experience, safe. Regardless, it still, begs the question, what not only, at this point I knew what I had wanted to do, but of course, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I knew why I wanted to do, but not what I wanted to do, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was the summer of 2022. I'll wrap this. It was the summer of 2022. I'm about to go into my senior year of college, 4th year, whatever you want to call it, of university. And, this was pretty fresh out of stopping track. So I'm coming out of track with a mindset of, this very disciplined, motivated, whatever you want to call it, mindset. Which simply it pushed me to, spend my summer, I guess you could say, locked in my apartment. This is, all my roommates have gone home. I have no car. I'm going to use this summer to go deep inside, quite essentially. once again, I'm seeing myself being every day is a step closer to the edge of the cliff. And
So was it because this was your senior year, you just, causing the shift, or,
most definitely. I played when I was a junior, and this is normally the period of time in which you get an internship. I decided I don't want to say I decided to thwart an internship. I did actually apply for 2 jobs, I think. Mom, if you're watching this, it was a lot more, but I applied for about 2 jobs, and neither of them wanted me. One was a startup, which is quite ironic, but neither of them wanted me. So I said, all right, so I'm going to do what I actually want to do. Now my mom wants me to do, and that's what I did. But it was during the summer. Long story short, I put myself on a very stringent schedule, down to the minute. And there was a period of time in which I'd go from independent reading to the gym. I'd give myself about 2 minutes.
So wait. Now I heard this. Why did you put yourself on that schedule? What motivated you to do that? So you had this time, you wanted to focus, but why go on that schedule?
I like to say, and that's honestly a good question. I could sit here and I could say, oh, because why not? Because of stoicism. The best reason I've came to is coming off of track. It's just that you're doing 10 years, of something. You're becoming a master, okay, 10,000 hours, whatever, So I guess it's just that mindset continuing, maybe ego backlash. Of course, you had your identity stripped like that, and then you're being forced to continue living on. Not only that, but of course, your collegiate track and field, that not just take away track for your collegiate athlete. You're putting a pedestal, all that. So it can create a lot of delirium. But anyway, so I put myself on this very strict schedule. I mean, I was counting calories down to the course calorie, and this was things I was doing in track anyway. I mean, in reality, this is what I was doing anyways, because with you're doing school and track, you're going to have a down to the down to your schedule, bouncing practice, class, free time, homework, whatever. It's pretty much down to the, I don't want to say minute, but it's down, you have a schedule. I will say though, of course, when it comes to eating, of course, you're counting, carbs, fats, protein, calories, everything. And I kind of kept that going for a little bit just to kind of know. I recommend for anybody in fitness to go for a period of time of counting everything that you eat, because you'll get to a point to where you don't have to anymore, because it's just banana's going to be 110 calories. Apple's going to be 80 at this size. These are things that you're just going to banana's going to have more carbs because and it's sweeter, and you're just going to know these things, and it's important.
So you were used to that regimens, and even though you weren't in track,
yes,
you wanted to keep it going. So you felt a void. I can relate to that as far as, having that regimen and you get used to it. And then if you're kind of off, it's like a void kind of type of thing. So you kept that going.
I think it was one of the first times I've actually had to question who I am as a person, because it's so easy to adopt this identity, especially one that's not only that. And this is why, of course, I tell the entirety of the story. You have an absent father. I will say I was in contact with him, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong. He didn't just disappear. We have an absent father, so it's very easy to become clung on to whatever identity that the world gives you. And luckily, I was raised in a nice enough place that identity that took hold of me was a sport. And I'm very grateful for the sport of track, especially high jump. Because, and let me give a shout out to high jump real quick. High jump is the only sport in which everybody loses. And I think pole vault, of course, is our cousin. They will get to a point, no matter if you're in first place, that the bar will get too high for you to thrust your body over. You know, you will lose, the bar will win. So it's very humbling in that sense. And, you know, I very much enjoy selecting that out of the multitude. You know, I've been a hurdler, I've been a sprinter, I've been every type of jump. I've thrown for a little bit until I almost took my coach's head off, but you get the point. You know, it's I've done a lot of them, and I have a lot of respect for it. But yeah, it's that's that.
So you were in your senior year. You didn't get the internship.
No, I did not.
So you were just focusing on yourself. It was that.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it was. And this is really what once again, I hope saying this will help it. You know, of course, you have to, as crazy as college is, I guess to put it in time frame perspective, come here in college. This is August 2019, go all the way up until 2020 March, of course, get sent home, come back that August 2020, continue on with it all the way up till about 2021, pledge of 2021, and start the company that's September of 2022. So, that's how it essentially went. I hope that's answered. I can re-ask that question if you can, please.
But if you didn't, so let me ask you this. Do you think if you would have gotten that internship or if things would have been different, you would have started your company?
Yeah, and that's a question I'm glad I don't have an answer to. Is what would have happened if I said, let me put my dreams to the side for my not just my mother. I could blame family. You know, they want to see you safe. They want to see you secure, of course, and that's beautiful. And don't get me wrong, but there comes a point in time where you're going to have to spread your own wings. All these. I like these general sayings because they carry so much truth. I know we hear them so much that they get diluted, but they carry so much truth. I mean, that's literally what it is. You are spreading your own wings, and now I can confidently say, since that risk was taken, the skills garnered from inception to now are irreplaceable and can be repeated as many times as it would ever need to be. So
in other words, you could just keep doing it. So you know the formula. Is that what you mean? You've got the formula down.
Yes, I can say that. I can say that I know how to get viewership. I can say that I know how to manage a team. I can say that I know how to source an item. And you put those three components together, essentially looking at it, manage finances, of course. You're essentially looking at a business. So, and that's great because it was done this young, which was very conscious. Because of course, there's a party that says, "Okay, go to your 9 to 5," and I don't mean to. I hate the term 9 to 5. It's a job. Just say job. All right. So go to your job. All right. Learn the skills working for another corporation, and then of course start your own company and apply that, and that's what we like to call self-deception. And of course making excuses, but you know yourself the best. And just recently now I'm starting to learn that the mechanics of self-deception for one, and how complex it can be. And these are simply skills that I believe everybody should look into at least once and apply, because we don't see that very much. And I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Well, so how did you come up with the problem or how did you identify the problem that you're solving?
Yeah, most definitely. And once again, principle. You have to have it. It's a formula. Nicholas once again, I speak about, I came up with this idea for this product. Of course, a little later on, learned that this has been made, but of course, if I haven't heard about it, then clearly the people that are in the industry aren't marketing properly. But regardless, simple equation of Nicholas, insert your own name here, has an issue. Mm-hmm. Nicholas found a solution to said issue. Nicholas is a normal person. So we have these three components. Nicholas has an issue. Nicholas found a solution. Nicholas is a normal individual, healthy, breathing. Therefore, many other people will have the same issue because you're taking the poll of, you can really put normal person here, normal, normal, you know what I mean. Member of society, functioning member of society. That's how many of us? 300 million. I think we're approaching 400 million. So where you have this amount of people, this is just the United States too, 8 billion, let's call it. Normal functioning person, I have an issue. Okay, so there's been a drop off here coming from A to B. Problem, issue. And you're really taking the amount of people that, once again, have this issue and are showing them that this is the solution to the problem. And I think it's done so well because this product is something that I personally needed, so I understand what you're looking for. And regardless, we see a lot of companies nowadays, they're essentially glorified media companies. And I like to somewhat place Bread not too far from it because we do all of our media. Don't get me wrong. And that's where we're able to be, and me personally, able to feel very creative. And I mean, just today, I literally lit a pair of these on fire in my kitchen and cooked with them. The day before, I froze them in an ice block and then I chipped them out, laced them into my shoe. I mean, what are we doing here? But I love it. This is ideas that I've come up with and want to see. Somebody's asked the idea, maybe the ice block. Somebody asked, can you freeze them? So I was like, okay, how can we make this fun? And that's essentially what we do. If you really, really want to boil it down, you have your products, you have your marketing, you put the two together. And obviously, any business person would say it's much more complicated than that. But in the end, that's kind of sort of where we see online go in general. And of course, retail too. I mean, that's, a lot of that comes down to that's the most attractive packaging on the shelf. But regardless, that's how it came down to. I'm a individual with a normal problem, with a normal type of shoe. Here's the solution. Oh, the solution works. Perfect. I've never heard of it. So who are other people that are like me? Gen Z. Great. I'm Gen Z. Great. I know how to get Gen Z eyeballs. And, obviously the whole point of even having a product like this is for it to, of course, work, the customer to be satisfied, and us to continue on to release more and better, giving them what they want. And that, of course, comes down to, what do I want? Because I'm a normal person. I'm a normal individual. I'm selling essentially to myself. And that's quite an interesting concept if you really think about it, that you're really selling to yourself when you do lead, let's say, marketing division or a sales division.
But you have to be honest. So if you're selling to yourself, you've got to be honest with yourself.
100%. And that's why we do things such as the carpool. That's as honest as it comes. Literally put my life on the line for it. We've done even more dangerous things. We brought, explosives. It's gotten pretty hectic over here, I will say. That's the beauty of it, and that's really what I like to show, is that radical honesty for it. This is the product in its own. If it fails, here's it failing. If it works, here's it working. Like I said earlier, of course, I thought we were recording. The most viral video we have right now is of course one of me failing, almost getting my leg ripped off. And that's the beauty of it. Showcase our failures. This is what happened. Oh, the lace broke actually when we were doing this. Yeah, that happened. So know that when you're getting this, it's just as transparent as possible. This is what I was saying with the online versus retail. Online, it's straight trust. It has to be trust. That's how I started this with people. A lot of people going to Amazon, and of course, love the platform as it is.
Wait. Talk about that trust, because you're saying it's got to be with explain that, because you talked about things being on time,
Yes.
delivery.
Well, our product, think of it buying clothes. That's an easy analogy to make with our shoelace because our shoelace comes in sizes. There's other shoelaces that you can cut so they all come in one size. But think of it buying clothes online. It has to be a trust. Okay, is it true to size? You see this true to size chart right there. Oh, there are the reviews. Of course, it has to be, people want transparency. Do we not all, especially in this day and age, there's a lot of deception out there. Of course, that's why I spoke on self-deception. There's plenty of it. But regardless, yes. So to be as transparent as possible with our product, I believe that's where we've seen a lot of success come from. Even as deep as transparency in, let's say, footage. We went to a sneaker con event at one point. Filmed out there and didn't like the footage, didn't get it up, and that's of course just me being a critic. A lot of the times I really want to put out content that I would have went out simply on the internet, but one that showcases our talents here, and obviously we hope to grow, so to be able to take that to the next level and actually get down to the crust of marketing and sales as a whole, because I believe that there's a lot more potential within all of us here at Bread. And it is my fiduciary responsibility to do everything in my power to get us to that point in which we are able to actually showcase our talents to the fullest extent. Because
I want to touch on that trust.
Yes.
So trust takes a lot of work.
Yes.
And planning.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to make sure, like, if you say I'm going to deliver a black lace, you can break that trust if they get a white lace.
Yes.
Or if you say, okay, you should get your package in 2 days, and then they don't get it in 7 days, that breaks the trust. So you have to do the planning so that means there's got to be something in place to make sure. So what are there any systems, or how did you work to put that in place?
I'm glad you used the word system. Businesses are built on systems. Businesses are built on principles. Once again, an entity, individual, find a similarity. Now, there's of course going to be different layers to the trust. There's of course the social trust, say on social media, the product trust within itself, the customer relation trust when they're emailing you, in which, of course, we'll have incorrect orders that can possibly be sent out, and if they are, then we fix it. Quite point blank simple. We're too small of a company to say, well, did it really? Can people abuse the system? Yes, but of course we find pattern within individuals. But that's simply put how it is. I want these individuals to have this product, to be able to enjoy it, and be able to have that convenience, because it came down the amount of and this is of course personal testing that came with this product of having elastic lace on one shoe, normal lace on the other, wearing elastic lace for a certain period of time, wearing normal lace for a certain period of time, to really seeing the difference between the two, and having to, of course, modulate the lace itself into, of course, not just looking like a traditional lace, but once again functioning as well. Our laces, if you want to tie them just as tight, they'll remain that tight. Especially with low tops, you can tie them just as tight and they'll slide on and off. We're actually developing a lace right now. I'm looking at it, in which you can tie it extremely tight. You can still slide it on and off. And that's that product development that we want to see. This is simply all of us individuals come together wanting to come into this industry, have an impact holistically, not just on the product side, but of course, hitting it all and being conscious of this, building a base of these principles to then act out of, such as startup mentality. You know, I was very grateful to actually go to one of the Seattle Amazon summits. Essentially, they invite all the vendors down to a summit in Seattle. I highly recommend if you're watching this and you haven't been, to go to the Amazon summit. But it's quite essentially, you know, one of the things they touch on is having that startup mentality, and always customer first, of course, is the largest thing that they touch on. But you know, having that startup mentality, which is of course customer first, and that's what it has to be, and it needs to be, and that's how we keep it. Because you know, without them, what are we? We're just a bunch of creatives, you know, and of course, there's no business to be had. So with that being said, we want to make sure it's special. I wish I had my shoebox here to show you, such as the attention to detail we had in our new shoebox. Now we did have actually some errors on it, less of construction, more of a copyright errors, but regardless, you know, there's a lot of time and attention went into it. You know, of course, we have our slippers. We put our socks in there. We have a card insert, a very nice box, and it's trying to go above and beyond, not in simply one division, such as the presentation, but the presentation, the customer service, that the ad that you had seen that brought you to us. I want you to be able to scroll Bread's account and basically have it as your For You page. You know, with our diverse amount of content that we make, and of course we try to make it interesting. You know, that's the job of us and the job of marketing. And now I hope people can find joy within that, and hopefully be able to be really refreshed with us as a company as a whole, because we do work on hard transparency. Kept our laces the same price throughout these shipping times, shipping effects.
And how are you able to do that with all of the challenges that we might be facing, or has that impacted your business?
Well, we had to release new products. We've had to, of course, have conversations with our suppliers and say, let's work this out. And, you know, I just go that much harder, in which we were going in that direction anyways. And that, you know, it's not always about the cash you can build now, but about the future you can build in the future. You know what I mean? In the sense that you're building a brand here. And it's regardless if you were to make $1 million, you start a brand in February, you're a millionaire by March. It doesn't matter. People haven't had time with you to understand who you are. And you know, big thing we're doing now is, of course, you know, wanting a little more personality based content to come out, and you know, for people to see us how we are. But you know, maybe that'll be something we say for our personal channels. You know, we always hear all this talk about personal branding nowadays, and you know, it's realizing these days time time speeds up after college, you know, and quite literally in the present moment. Every day is, you know, quite essentially just, and it's kind of weird because it feels so long, but then you look back and it seems so short. You know, of course, you always hear that growing up and whatever, you know, but it's the truth. So what do you do in that situation? You have to live in the present for as much as you can. But that's not exactly conducive to running a business. So you have to modulate and you know, find where you can do that when it is appropriate, and not in moments that it is not. So,
well, you know, you had a lot of success in, you know, many would say a short period of time.
Yes.
So what were some of the challenges? You know, what was it easy? Was it rough? I mean, you know, what was the journey? Because you were telling me earlier you got to over, what is it, over 500,000 units. So what was that journey like? You know, because a lot of times we hear those numbers, we hear a lot of things, and we think, you know, and for many it is. It's easy. This is just like, you know, a cakewalk. Was that getting to where you are now? Was it easy? Was it, you know, when you look back, was it hard? How was it?
I love how this interview is going because it keeps allowing me to the monologue that I started with about how much pressure is appropriate. Because you asked, is it easy or is it hard? At the end of the day, I ended up in this spot. The actions, not exactly thoughts, maybe it started there, but the actions that were taken, the words that were spoken, had caused me to be at this very moment. And you have to ask, is it easy? Is it hard? Well, it was extremely hard. But then, of course, you were to say, okay, this is me asking myself, if I were to do it again right now, I would be very easy because I know do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Would it still take time? Yes, and that's really, you know, they say basically a winded fatigue kills all or something. Whatever.
Okay.
But you know, regardless, you know, it has changed, I guess you could say, over the years. You know, these first three have been busy, you know, 70, 80, 90, 100 hour weeks. Yeah. And regardless, you say, is that easy or is that hard? But when you are so entrenched in a process, for me, it was the process of becoming an entrepreneur. I don't believe you're an entrepreneur when you simply just start a business. It's of course taking on a massive amount of risk and really the investment of it all is what dictates that. And of course, there's going to be arguments. I could call it now for years about what's an entrepreneur, what is not. But regardless, yeah, I mean, it was extremely hard in every way, shape, and form. I like to say the amount of work that it took to get from 12-year-old in track and field to then 22 collegiate track and field athlete is equivalent to the amount of work it's taken from day one until today. If not, it's been more within business, even from a time investment standpoint, I would say so as well.
Because 10 years into 3. So it's like 10 years of work you had to do in 3 years.
Yes, and my friends like to say that my age, my face has said that. So everybody always used to tell me I look younger than my age, and nowadays people say I look older. You know, 24.
No, you still look young. But so what kept you? So if it was that hard, yeah. I mean, what kept you going, and what keeps you going right now?
Caffeine, but no. I've actually been cutting down cutting down on caffeine. You know, I definitely watch it, but regardless, it has helped. But in all honesty, you know, once again, it came down to making a decision when I was very young that this was what I was placed on this earth for, quite essentially. And from a materialistic paradigm, that is. But most definitely, and as simple as that, that has kept me going thus far, let's say. And there is no sign of even a percentage of drop off. Absolutely zero room. You know, it's been very It's been a journey in which, even though it feels as I'm walking through a minefield blindfolded backwards, I still know where I'm going, which is quite interesting. You could say it's even divine. It's conversations like this seem to happen in my mind, and I journal about it, and I ask myself, of course, very similar questions, because I think it's important to know what you are doing when you're doing it, to be conscious of what you are doing instead of simply sleepwalking through life. So, of course, these are questions I'm forced to ask myself: how we got here. Quite essentially, first company started. We were able to get on Forbes 30 under 30, thankfully, in about 2 years of that, and extremely grateful for it. And I like to treat it as a token from the universe saying you're headed in the right direction. I surely do hope.
And Good Morning America. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And Good Morning America, yes.
Well, on that note, so I was watching, before we were talking, I was watching a video, and they were talking about AI companies.
Yes.
And they talked about something called the 996.
Okay, never heard.
So the 996, so they were talking about American companies competing with Chinese AI companies. And they were saying in China, they developed the 996. You work from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. So they were saying that American companies, in Silicon Valley, the AI companies, they started taking on the 996. Like it's like 70 something hours. So then they said that the companies in China do what's now called the 007. So then they said the 007 is you work from midnight to midnight, from 12 to 2. You 7 days a week you're working. You work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yes.
So when I'm hearing that, I'm saying to myself, and you were talking about those hours, and you take caffeine and things like that. I mean, and 10 years into 3 years, and you said you found your purpose. I want to hear more about that mentality, because you go on TikTok, you go on social media, you hear a lot about entrepreneurship and things as it's an alternative to, like you were saying, a 9 to 5. That doesn't seem like an alternative. It seems like more work.
It most definitely is, because you enjoy it. That's the only difference. When you're doing something you enjoy, you want to spend more time doing it. And that wholeheartedly, business just simply encompasses everything I love to do. I got the creative of being able to make videos. I get to, of course, be able to provide for my family. I get to hang out here with my friends. I get to, have a second home base. It's something you can't dream for. And obviously with that, it takes responsibility to keep that alive, which is simply just functioning as an individual. A lot of people don't realize that the purpose of life is to live. But regardless, in terms of with that, it was simply, and I don't want to have to go, metaphysical with it, but it's you simply know, and it's like, it's my life has been full of many questions to be had, and much confusion of a lot of whys I ask in my life, and this was one of those things in which I didn't have to ask why. There was no question to be begged. I've never been clear on anything in my life, and I forgot if this was. I don't remember if this was before or after. That's my mute button. I don't know if this was before or after we started if I said this before or after we had started recording, but I lost my train of thought. But regardless, and for me, I actually had a conversation with my brother just here recently. And this can be applied to really Gen Z as a whole. This is some advice for Gen Z. This is simply what I had done. I say Gen Z, I guess it's whatever generation, but that seems to be the one that will sometimes listen to me. I simply, how do you, what's my purpose? What's my passion? For me, it came back to looking at my past. And of course, what dreams that I have at that point. And of course, we can relate this back to the story of trading and being a merchant for silly bands. It all kind of came full circle with that. And contentness was found within it, because it's not really the instrument. It's not the job that is going to dictate your satiation. That's not a good word. That's going to dictate your contentness within it. It really does come down to you. And, of course, it will come down to your selection that you make. But what are you trying to get out of life, I guess, is the question that it begs. And, I guess, I guess I was just lucky.
Well, it sounds like a lot of hard work, persistence, and you built everything. But here's my question: you had extreme success that came about quick. Less than 3 years, over 500,000 units. That's amazing. If it took longer, would you still be here? So if you didn't have the sales that you have now, would you still be going and working and doing Breadlace?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because that's a great question. And my friends like to poise hypotheticals on me and say, what would you do? Obviously the reality is I can't answer that. But I can say yes, in terms of, we've had slow moments in which, makes you think, okay, we've been going for this long, but these past few months have been a little, these past few weeks, and we've been putting out a lot. So clearly, there's something that we're not doing properly. Let's diagnose that. I mean, it's a forever project. It's like saying if, and please apologize. I apologize ahead of time for being too morbid. That's essentially saying, if your life as a whole, if it wasn't going as well, would you still live it? And the answer is, of course. Of course, I would still live it. And and this really, it's also a great question, because even thinking back with track and me pulling the core on that, it definitely made you call yourself a few words. Quitter is one of them. It definitely makes yourself call yourself a few words, and you have to reconcile with that. Understand that it has already happened. So of course, pain that you put on yourself is futile, in which of course, you find yourself in where you still do. But once you're able to get over that hump and understand why you did what you did, but or even say, I don't want that to happen again. I don't want to be put in a position to where it got to being too much, in which I could not figure out a way to solve the issue at hand. You know, you want to be able to learn from that situation of being more of a problem solver. So that's a good question. Would I still be? I believe so, but of course that reality doesn't exist.
Okay. Well, you know, listen to that, and I'm gonna. I know we're a little bit over, but I had, and this was when I was living in Chicago, and I was teaching. This is my first professorship at a university called National Louis University, and I came into contact with. I don't know if I'm using the right term. Not influencer, but he made his money off of social media. His name is Corporate. He would make, and he still does to this day. Makes videos, skits. He even put me in a couple of these skits, and he would make money off of placements. You know, like, you know, people would pay him. He goes to the restaurant and would do one of his skits, but they would pay him for that. And listen to this. You kind of made me think about a conversation I had with him. And I want to ask you how you handle this. He told me one day, he said that, you know, he's basically his own business. Mm. So he said that one day I'm rich, and then the next day I don't have any money. Mm. So I took that as the ups and downs of business. Mm. So, and he was saying that many times individuals who are not in business or understand, they can't relate to that because they just assume everything is just, you know, like, you know, you're just amazing all the time. But he told me, there's days I don't have any money. There's days I have a lot of money. So when you talk about those ups and downs, how do you deal with, I mean, what keeps you going? Because that could be hard for someone who doesn't relate to it or couldn't deal, you know, or wait, here's the other point. Yes. This is what I see with a lot of students. They're interested in entrepreneurship, and they may view it as like their 9 to 5, where they're getting that check every 2 weeks, you know. So how do you stay motivated, and how do you deal with the ups and downs?
Yeah, the sport of entrepreneurship has been commercialized, kind of like golf, you know. And I'm a part of the commercialization of golf. I can't say I'm still learning. I'm out there, but regardless, ups and downs. Yeah, I mean, first of all, of course, going back to how I was raised, parents split, used to being up at a high, boom, drop back down, you know, on a random day, and you know, kind of build a callus to it in that sense. That's why a lot of entrepreneurs that do start some type of trauma, whatever, not all of them, of course, but some, and that's because he's able to handle that emotional abuse. Quite essentially, is what comes from it, at least from a startup, from how we did it, you know, from zero to not zero. So that's of course one. And if that's not just one, that's if not almost everything. I've had plenty of friends that come from well-to-do professionals that I've attempted for a few days, some a few weeks, some a few months. But when it gets real, that's when that passion has to kick in. That's when the mixture of everything. It goes against once again back to that self-deception I was talking about. It's not just one thing that clicks it off. It's a mixture that all come together to form this cookie. You got the flour, you got the sugar, you got the chips, you got whatever you need for this to be cohesive to then form what it is. You know, think of it as your DNA. You know, it all connects once again. You know, that's me on my connecting, man. But regardless, Yeah, I mean, for the ups and downs, you can. Let me give some practical advice. Of course, you can have a mentor that can guide you how to get through that. You can read a book, maybe read a book about ups and downs. But for me, it was quite essentially thrusted and forced upon me by life, which, of course, builds you into the person that you end up being. Which made it easy because there's plenty of high highs and there's plenty of the lowest of lows, and it's very real, very real, especially when you wake up and you realize it wasn't a dream. In both ways, of course, in both ways, and you still have to show up and handle. Not only that, but you have to handle it. If you're an entrepreneur and you have Dookie on your doorstep, you're gonna have to pick it up. Nobody's picking that up for you. You can keep it there, but I wouldn't. So I guess it's simple as that. Being conscious, maybe sprinkling a little trauma there. But no, practically, how do you handle it? You're just gonna have to handle it. That's life. And that is probably the most practical advice I could give somebody. Go speak to somebody if it's really getting on you. Go read a book. Go consult. But regardless, I'm a 24-year-old tell you that that's life.
Mm-hmm. But that's good because, and I think that's good to hear, particularly, I like my students to hear that point of view that there's going to be ups and downs.
Yes.
There's it's not going to be stable, but it's got to be something that you're really willing to push through. And you hear that, I just to be fair, you hear that message quite a bit, but it's kind of, I think you tend to kind of look at the good, the not necessarily the good, but the outcome. It's hard to look at how somebody got to where they were, and you just focus on where they are now, and they're telling you like, hey, this wasn't easy, but you only see where they are now. You don't see those long hours, and a lot of that work that they went through to get to where they are. So I think that is good to explain that. I like the part when you mentioned 10 years in 10 years of work in 3 years. So that really puts things in perspective that, and I think a lot of times you have to ask yourself, am I willing to do 10 years of work, in 3 years? Am I willing to go through these, go through this to get to the other side? You know what? Here's the other thing. You went through all of this. So you did, the 10 years and 3 years. You've got the ups and downs, but there's still no guarantee of tomorrow. So how do you deal with that? And let's talk about the future. How do you deal with that? Somebody who's working their job, they, for the most part, they know, hey, I'm going to go to work, but my job will probably be there next week, next month. How do you deal with that potential uncertainty of the future?
I guess I'll be straight up about it. Obviously, self-deception, in which we all do about the future, because sorry, the future simply doesn't exist. What exists is right now, and not to be all woo-woo metaphysical, but it really is the truth. What exists is what we are experiencing right here in the moment. So it's an educated guess, a hypothesis. These are trends in which we're seeing, and this last quarter this happened, and then this new quarter, of course, we have AI and all this. So to be able to predict the future is a skill that entrepreneurs will have to have. But at the end of the day, of course, there's no such thing of it. Companies, I believe Zuckerberg said this, companies die when these two requirements are met. Either, I shouldn't say either, it's these two things. You run out of money, you run out of ideas. You know, I don't remember if you said if it was both or either, but you get the idea. You know, if you don't have any money, you can solve ideas to make something out of nothing, and that's essentially how we started. You know, we had to have our idea of great TikTok videos when we started. Don't get me wrong, they were horrible, but they worked. Mm-hmm. So that's the idea side, and sometimes we were a little more reliant on money. At what point we had a media team, but of course they weren't scratching that itch that we had. But that was our, like, you know, once again showing how that rule works. But once if they were both messed up, we have no money in the account and we have no idea what to do, that of course is your business being collapsed. So it's always having one of those is important. And luckily, more people, more ideas, more commerce, more business, and they feed off each other.
Wait, on that one, you said more people, more ideas. I like that. Well, you mean more heads, more.
Yes, it might not be good ideas. Good ideas. I'm sorry. That's for my buddy who works for me. But anyways, I mean, most definitely, everybody has an idea of something. They can put it, and that's it. And here's the thing, in the end of this, if somebody is thinking of, I often ask myself, don't try not to be obviously too self-righteous. And I say this, there's a lot of people that are walking around that are much smarter than me, much better than me, in the sense that they just haven't learned how to pull it out of them. And that's really my culture when it comes to employing the people that I have, is really bringing these talents out of them that are within them. They just can't find that intrinsic motivation to have it, and that's of course my goal is to make sure my employees achieve their goals. And when that's happening, business will be running just fine. And that's what I carry. We're still growing, of course, and I believe holding on to these style principles will bring us far. And once again, still, it all boils down to I'm still learning. Most definitely, we're still learning.
But that was good. You talked about the more ideas, the more people, the more ideas. Many times I'll hear that, hey, I don't want to tell someone this idea. I want to keep it to myself. So it sounds like the way forward is to get the ideas, to talk to people. Is that what you're saying? Instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to hold on to this idea. It's a good idea. I think this is great. Mm-hmm. I won't talk to anyone about it. I'm just going to try to figure this out on my own.
Life's funny. Because you say one thing, you do another, and you guess at it, and you see what happens, and you keep on going at the same pace. We're all going at the same pace here. When I had started, that's the exact mindset that I had. I don't know, for better or for worse. I guess in this very moment we could say for better, but at the end of the day, who knows about the future? But anyways, I basically had this idea, and I protected it like it was a seed, maybe like a little sprout. Yeah. I remember the only person I had told was my brother. I briefly mentioned it to him that I was starting this thing. Definitely was not going to tell. Wasn't even going to think about telling anybody else besides him. But regardless, we protected it, the idea, and of course sprouted it. And I said, once, to keep the analogy going, once everybody around me maybe can see the sprout growing, and that will be their way of figuring out what's going on. So I truly did protect it. Most likely out of surely it'd have to be insecurity out of what if somebody were to take it. But at the end of the day, especially when you have a product like mine, there's a few competitors in the market in which, it really does come down to your ideas and in terms of marketing and, maybe your product base or really how the company's ran as a whole, but let's say marketing in terms of standing out in those ways, and those ways will happen naturally. I could have told everybody about what I was doing. It probably wouldn't have changed much. If anything, it would have changed up here for me. My nervous system as well. I'm taking a risk. You have to know yourself in that sense. I mean, if I told people, I've been even more pressure on me. And that's during that period of time. I'm handshaking. You gotta basically being. And I say in this period of time for me, it's not a recommendation. I have to be in my own world and go deep into here. What are we doing? So that's that on protecting. If you're confident with it, you want to tell people, get some secondary knowledge on it, surely go for it. I built it off of principles. So I knew if I had a problem, I'm a normal person. Everybody else has the same problem. Here's the solution to your problem. Simply put.
That's good. And so I guess, I guess my last question would be, what's the future? What's next? New products, new things? What's going on?
Some things I do keep secret. A lot. We have a new product coming out here. We just have some samples come in. Should be having our final sampling coming in here in, say, about 2 weeks. And we'll be going to the holidays. Expansion. Strict expansion. Staying on our principles and our roots. Keeping our socials up and really for me is getting better at this marketing thing and with the deals we make, because I make them to try to showcase, I make the content that we want to see and that the public agrees with, because the public is us. We all become one here at Bread. We have people that show up for many of our videos and come back for the other ones, and we're all just having fun together. They comment, do they work while frozen? Next thing you know, we got laces frozen in a big ice cube. That's simply how we operate. And we all have fun together, and that's how it's supposed to go. Because look, people think of the trillions and the billions, and like, let's come back to earth. Let's have some fun. And if you're doing something that is righteous, it will succeed regardless.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. So what, I guess, if you were talking to someone that is thinking of, so in other words, they've gotten, they say, you know what, I want to have a business. I've got this idea. What is one thing that you would tell them they need to focus on? With this one thing, you do this, it's no guarantee, but it'll help you.
Let's take a look in general, or can we go deeper? How old is this individual? Can we, or is this general advice, or
general?
Be like, okay.
So someone said, "Hey, I've got this idea. I've been thinking about it. What is something that I should focus on?"
Most definitely, and I'll end it with this story. When I learned how to drive, I had an issue in which I would center myself in the road. Not even myself, I mean my physical body. When you're driving, you're on the left side of your car, but I would center my physical body in the middle of the road, in which the right side of the car is dang near on the strips. And the driving instructor simply told me to get in the middle of the lane, and which is an unnatural thing, I guess, to place a car in the middle of the lane, to look out as far as you can down the road as possible. And that to me symbolizes looking as far down the road of life as possible into where you want to go. When you're taking a bank, this is for my mountain bikers out there, you're taking that bank, you're looking ahead to be able to follow the bank while it's going around. And your mind kind of automatically corrects. So I want this individual to think of where they want to end up at with this, because that's ultimately what will happen. Because to not operate in that paradigm, you are already failing yourself. And that's very deep right there. To not operate in that paradigm, you're already failing yourself. If you don't see yourself in the end win, then why start? Besides, you're saying, I just want to start this for pure experience. In that case, no advice. Just go start. If you want to be tactile and really, once again, coming back to it, self-deluded. This is once again talking about a future principle, and I hope people don't hear that word and take it with a grain of salt here. But you really are going to have to carry that mindset for it to be successful. Every business owner ever, I believe, has carried a similar type of mindset, at least in the deepest of deep, in the back of mind, whether they sell interviews or not. Because what you focus on grows. At the end of the day, what you focus on grows. So I'll leave it there. Be conscious. Know what you want. Know where you want to go, and of course, make it happen. Because you can. You know you can. In the back of your mind, you know you can, and you know yourself intimately, and that can work for you or that can work against you. Coming back to the self-deception, you know yourself well enough to convince yourself that you are not. I'll leave it there.
No, that was good. And I know we've gone over what's your socials?
Right there at Breadlace. You can search me on Instagram, Nick Prentiss, NickPrentiss. Regardless, that's us right there. Follow, check us out. A lot more, everything to come. Content, products, people. I mean, this is, we're really saying some history in the making here, which is beautiful.
This is awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. It's been a pleasure, and it is good. We got to shorten the time frame, so this one is too. Hey, got to shorten it up.
We'll do 3 next time. That's fine. Most definitely. It's always a pleasure. I do appreciate you, and Fon, for having me on. I mean, it's amazing. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for giving me this platform.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
In my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed. All the squad here to play, and I've got something to say, yeah. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no, I push play.